This is take 3. Take 1, my friend was being a little loud in the background. Take 2, my other friend called me on the telephone. And take 3, he just sent me a text. He's like, you better be not filming a sex tape or anything. That's what he told me. What kind of friends do I fucking have? Take 3 is going to be the good take. I watched Vast of Night, which is an Amazon original picture. That's right. The company that started as a small book-selling company is now making original motion pictures. Now, this isn't their first rodeo. Bezos has produced a few movies before, at least Bezos' company. Manchester by the Sea is a recent film that was produced by Amazon Pictures. And now we have Vast of Night. Look this movie up. Had no clue who the director was. Filmography is a little... This is his first film. I didn't know the cast as well. But I've heard things about this movie that led me to want to watch it. So this movie is about a small town in Southern America in the 1950s. Nice and wholesome. All of a sudden, this bigger threat occurs. And the movie follows 2 people, a telephone operator and a broadcaster of the local radio show. Together, they try to solve what's going on in this small town. Very, very reminiscent of like a Spielberg movie, like Goonies, or recently there was Super 8. I'm editing this shit right now. Spielberg did not direct either one of those movies. He produced both. Needless to say that the material was heavily inspired by Spielberg. On with the review. This one achieves what I thought Super 8 was a little lacking on. I thought this movie was very good. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like an amazing movie or anything like that, but it was a solid movie, and I'm really impressed at the fact that this is a first attempt by a director. Although there are some things I'm a little iffy on, this is a pretty solid movie altogether, just a solid movie. If I had to compare it, it is very similar to Super 8, but Super 8 to me is paying homage a little too hard to Spielberg, while paying homage to that genre, it still manages to make its own thing and be original on its own. For instance, in Super 8, all the characters in that movie are basically carbon copies of characters in the Goonies, while this, it felt a little more different in that regard. We just follow those 2 main characters, the radio guy and the telephone operator. This was a very immersive movie. I really felt like I was in the 1950s. It reminded me of American Graffiti in that regard. I just really felt like I was in that era. Stuff like the set design, everything looked so beautiful. So much attention to detail as well. When I watched this movie, there's so many stuff that just weren't regulated like they are today. For instance, everyone's watching the basketball game and everyone's clumped up in the exit trying to peek through watching the game. If that were happening nowadays, someone would scream like, "Fire hazard, you guys gotta get out of the way." But it was the 1950s, no one gave a fuck. In the 1950s, people were dying of what were they dying of? Fucking lung cancer because they kept smoking? No one gave a shit. It was a much less regulated time. The dialogue, too, there's so much attention to detail in their dialogue. The way the actors deliver the dialogue, their accents, as well as the choice of words, the references they make. They make pop culture references to stuff of that era, but it never feels forced or on the nose. It's little subtle references here and there, and it really helps you get immersed into this universe. The cinematography in this, for a low-budget movie, is amazing. There's some shots where the camera is in one location, and without any cuts, it just goes to a completely different location. You're in the radio broadcast room, you exit the building and enter the school, and then you see what's happening in the school. There's a basketball game, you exit the school, you go to some person's house. a lot of changes in locations are done without any cuts, and it was all smooth, and I thought that was really cool. That's a nice touch. And when you watch 50s media, like a lot of it like is a product of its time, and the director would just put the camera there and let the actors act, and then they'd cut the camera. Felt very stage-like back in the 1950s. But here, they managed to do more modern camera trickery without detracting from that 50s vibe that's going on. And I thought that was really cool, because you get to see the 1950s, but through a different lens. It really did make it feel more immersive. I like the themes going on in this movie as well. The movie is very wholesome. It's almost like a family movie, but I don't know if a kid would like this kind of movie just because it's a little slower paced. But it does feel like The Goonies a bit. It's a very wholesome movie, but there is a bit of loss of innocence going on. You see like this small American town, and they slowly start to realize that there's like a greater threat and a bigger conspiracy going on. It makes it really interesting, because the 1950s, when you look back at it, it's an interesting time, because yes, there have been wars in the past, like World War I and World War II, and the Nazis and stuff like that. I feel like the 1950s is such a big shift in that, oh, let's go fight the bad guys, to all of a sudden, like, holy shit, we're like just like a little piece of this giant puzzle called the world. And I feel like this movie captures that. It really does feel like we're going from the 1940s, which was World War II, into the 1960s, where people are starting to rebel and doubt the government. The 1950s was that in-between zone where people were starting to transition, and it really did capture that. A lot of themes going on as well, like themes of civil rights. Small spoiler, not too big, but they make black and minorities do all the dirty work for this big conspiracy going on, because they know that no one will actually listen to them or take their words seriously. I thought that was a very clever premise, and something that is really relevant to both its time and currently relevant. The music in this was amazing. I rarely stick around for the end credits. I usually movie's done, unplug my computer from the TV. Yeah, that was a good time. No, this movie, that music, that soundtrack was so beautiful. It sounded a bit like the Interstellar soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, but I thought the music in this was just beautiful as well. So what didn't I like about the movie? I feel like the movie does have a tough time picking up the pace at the beginning, and once you know what's going on, then the pacing gets a little better. I thought as well that there were some weird stylistic choices. When you're first watching the movie, you're watching it through an old 1950s TV, and then you zoom in and you're watching what's on the TV, which is cool. It kind of looked like Hereditary, how at the beginning of the Hereditary movie, you're looking at a dollhouse, and the whole movie is what's happening inside the dollhouse. So similar thing going on. The only thing is they kept cutting back to the TV and going back and forth and back and forth. It was a little weird to me to do this decision. I feel like you could have gotten the point across just by having that as the first scene, and at the end to remind the audience that this is all happening in a TV. And sometimes there would be dialogue going on, and the screen would just cut to black, and there's just dialogue going on. Then you go back up and you see them talk, and then the screen fades to black again, and you're like, okay, what's really going on here? Some stylistic choices didn't really work, but that's understandable. It's a rookie mistake, rookie movie. You try different things when you're a rookie, and you feel the waters, what works and doesn't work, and then on your sophomore attempt, you polish a few things, and next thing you know, boom, you're Martin Scorsese. So yeah, very impressive movie to me. Is it my favorite movie of 2020? No. I would say it's maybe like number 5 right now, but I still need to catch up on a ton of movies. I feel no real need to rewatch this movie. I feel like I've seen it once. I'm like, wow, that was great. And I don't think a repeat viewing would add anything to it. But that said, this was a pretty fun movie. It's on Amazon Prime. I'm just going to go on an Amazon Prime rant right now. I feel like the picture quality on Amazon Prime is dog shit. It's not good. I don't know if it's my computer, my internet connection. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. When I go on Netflix, crisp, clear picture. When I go on Amazon Prime, it looks like a pixelated mess. And in this movie especially, the whole movie happens in the nighttime, and there'd be some shots that I'm sure are beautiful, but it fucking looks like a fucking 8-bit Nintendo game is what it looks like. Bezos! Come on, man. You're a rich dude. I'm sure you can afford all the bandwidths in the world. Step it up a bit, you know? Come on, I want to see these movies in HD. You want people to stop going to the theater and start using streaming services instead? This is the first step is to give a normal picture quality. Jeez! Good movie, though.
It's something talking, and they don't stay for long.
Hey!
Ever take the wheel? What's going on? There's something in the sky.